Oh, you're back on Outside Belly. I'm John Fredericks, your blowtorch, your free speech in America, your oracle of the deplorables. Back with us, I'm sorry. Todd Sheets is with us. Todd Sheets, author of the best-selling book, Everything You Want to Know About the 2008 Crisis, How It Happened, Where It Happened. He's got a picture of me in there on the front page, I think, right inside the jacket, or it should be. Elaine Parker with us as well. Elaine, the senior communications executive of the Job Creators Network. Go to joinjcn.com. That's joinjcn.com. Now, Todd Sheets, he writes for Substack and he doesn't charge you anything. Yay! Love that. Just go to Todd Sheets. Just go to Substack and put in Todd Sheets and all the stuff comes up right there. And you can follow him. You can sign up. You can subscribe. And it's free. Free. Free is good. So thank you, Todd, for doing that. Let's get back to messaging. Let's get back to affordability. Let's get back to where do we go from here? And most important, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to these H-1B visas and we'll go from there. Okay, not a fan. I'm on the opposite side of the president on this particular issue. I agree with him on everything else, especially tariffs. But this issue, these jobs are supposed to be for Americans, like our workers, our kids, not importing cheap labor from India or Vietnam or some other country. So I really don't get where the HB-1 visa, if it was up to me, I'd cancel them. I would just not allow them. I would have, my number would be 0. That's my number. How do these help? Everything you guys have just said, affordability, grow, jobs. How does it help, Todd, bringing in foreign labor, cheap labor to take our jobs? How does that fit into what you just said?
All right, so I'm going to take Trump's side on this one. I think that they're directionally right when they're talking about setting a very high price tag on these H-1Bs. And I agree with you that there's been a huge manipulation and misuse of this to bring in waves of low-cost workers, and that probably has displaced American jobs. At the same time, the president's comment was that, when you're talking about these really unique levels of talent that can come in and help start new businesses, help grow companies, and help create lots of jobs and high-paying jobs, we do want to attract the world superstars. If it's Major League Baseball, we want Ohtani coming over to America to play baseball here because it enhances the Major League Baseball. It enhances the viewing experience. It gives us the best in the world. And I think at that level, we want to be attracting those people that can found and develop and grow companies. You're right. We don't need to be bringing in low-wage people, although even there, I think there may be some subtleties that I just haven't looked into detail. But we don't want to be incentivizing companies here to set up offices in other countries and have the people employed over there because these wage gaps are so big. So I think those things need to be balanced out, but I'm definitely a big fan of bringing in the superstars who can help lead the growth wave and keep us, we've got these Mag 7 companies driving all of this, and we've got foreigners who've played a huge role in a lot of those. We want to keep that happening.
It sounds good. But the reality of it is, why not train our kids to do those jobs? This is what I don't understand. And when asked on Laura Ingraham about it, when she pushed back a teeny little bit, not the pushback I would do, it's a teeny little pushback, President Trump immediately said, our kids can't do those jobs. I don't agree with that. Elaine's got 2 daughters. They could get trained to do those jobs. I got 3 kids. They could all get trained to do those jobs. They're all smart. I don't know about your own family, but I heard that statement. It's like, well, that's counter to everything we're talking about, but it all sounds good. See, this is how Wall Street sells it, right? Just the way you did it. Great messaging on this. By the way, Todd, I give you an A+. A+.
That's called
right? We're going
to
bring in some superstars, and because of their superstar work, they're going to grow the economy. They're going to grow the company, which are going to create real jobs for Americans. I mean, it sounds great coming out of Wall Street. Reality is they're taking our jobs away They come in waves. They get a 5-year visa, then they extend it. Now it's 10 or 3 to 6. Then they get married and have a child. Then they're here forever. So they never leave. So basically, it's a backwards way to open the border. It's no different than when Biden was doing, only you're doing it under another name. Elaine?
Well, look, I like Todd's messaging as well.
It's good.
I had someone
It's
on
wrong, but it's good.
I had someone from NetChoice on my show yesterday talking to him about the AI revolution.
Who?
And
Who was on?
From NetChoice, the senior policy director at NetChoice, talking about the AI revolution, and we are leading in that area. And what he told me is that the companies like Google and the big tech companies, they are doing massive training, getting into high schools and trying to train up these kids at earlier ages to prepare them for AI, because those are going to be the jobs. There's going to be so much displacement, but we're winning right now in that area. And maybe one of the reasons why Trump is opening up the H-1B visas is because there isn't the skill level there. People are being displaced by AI, and it is a coming problem for the country. And we're going to have to fill the jobs to stay ahead of ahead of China on AI. But we're also going to have to train up new people coming into the workforce and current people who are displaced. So I think there's a lot of things going on here, John, that have to be considered in the president's decision to increase the H-1B visas.
Well, I don't like it. And you sound like the general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers a decade ago, who told their fans to trust the system. 10 years later, they're still in last place.
Not trust the system. I'm not a trust the system person, John. I'm not a trust the system, but we're in a new area right now, and that's with AI. And people are going to be displaced.
Tariff money. Why not take this tariff money and go to these companies, these so-called companies that need the so-called superstars, which I don't buy in any of it. I think it's all about cheap labor, guys, when you get to it. It's at the end of the day, it's about paying them much less money than you'd pay Elaine's daughter. That's what this whole thing's about. Okay. So why not take that money and go to the companies that so-called need the superstars and say, look, we're going to fund a training center for you as long as you train our kids to do those jobs. 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever it takes. Train them to do it. We're going to fund it. We get all this money from the tariffs, and then we're going to get jobs for our kids instead of doing it the easy, cheap way, which is importing in foreign labor that Wall Street can't export the jobs. Somebody closed the borders, so can't get the immigrants in. So now they got to pay people, and now they go to the White House and whine and get HB-1 visas. That's I'm telling you guys, at the end of the day, that's what this whole thing's about.
It's going to take public and private partnerships like that, John, and that's what we talked about, because the tech companies aren't going to be able to handle all the training that's going to need to be done. We're going to have those partnerships going on to train up our own workforce and be ready for those jobs. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of jobs available, and nobody's going to be skilled enough to do it.
All right, now we're on the same page, Elaine. Okay, let's get to some phone calls. We've spurred a little debate. Everybody knows where I stand on this issue. But Todd, that was good messaging. You really should give that to the White House. That's really good message. It's false, but it's good. Let's get to it's very good. Let's get to Tony in North Carolina for the gang. Go ahead. We should.
Hey, John. Hey.
Well, wait, Tony. Todd, we need to title Elaine and Todd something. Like we have the Virginia gang and we have the Georgia Peaches. We need to title this something because this is really good stuff here. So we'll talk about that later. Tony, go ahead.
So I was wondering if this is going to be somewhat similar with the importation of immigrants into the UK and then utilizing digital ID as a form to quote unquote, help with that issue. If this is going to be the leeway into digital ID into the United States in order to identify these foreign nationals who now come and work for big companies over here in the U.S., if this is going to somehow be a next stepping stone for the implementation of digital ID as the UK has done to curb their immigration.
Todd?
I don't know that much about what the UK is doing with digital ID. So I'm going to pass that to either of you if you guys have some more expertise on that. I'll make a comment on a different matter when we get an opportunity to here, because I think there's a couple of important points we need to bring home.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to remember the biggest source of all of these problems is not immigration, although immigration was a disaster under Biden, and that has been addressed. And we're not talking about going back to that. But if we want to really deal with the lack of working class upward mobility, we go back to the 1990s and the failure of communism, which dumped over 1 billion people in China and several hundred million people in Eastern Europe into the global Western labor markets. Their populations were double the size of ours. And even as late as the 90s, China's GDP per capita was like 1.5% of ours. If communism had not failed on that scale and created all those impoverished workers, far more than there were in the economies that were trying to absorb them, we would not be dealing with the drag on wages that we have been dealing with for the last 3 decades. And so if you really want to, the core problem is the failure of centrally planned economies and communism. And that's what's really been weighing it. Now, we've made a lot of mistakes. The Fed's made mistakes by playing money games to push up stock prices and home prices and make people feel richer than they actually are, to keep the spending up. We've let in way too many immigrants, probably for political reasons, which needed to get addressed. But the real problem, if we're going back to dealing with this, is the failure of communism. And I think it's very important to keep that's the issue, and not going down the socialist Mamdani path to try and solve this, which takes us right back down the road that created all these problems in the first place.
Todd, I'm going to nominate you for a teaching economics job at Harvard, replacing Larry Summers. That was excellent. Let's get to Paul in Michigan, line 2 for the gang.
Hey, John. Hey, yeah, I think you articulated the argument pretty well. But I just want to say that this whole myth that we don't have the workers here to do the job, this H-1B is not some high-tech billet that we don't have people trained up to fill. There are work visas, that are at a higher level or a higher rate for specialty skills and specially trained people. So it's a lie, misinformation that's being peddled. And, your guests are peddling it right here on your show. And it's the same message we heard with the whole free trade thing 30 years ago. Hey, we're going to lift everybody's wages. All we have to do is open our market, and the whole world's wages will rise. But what did it do? It brought us down to their level, all right? It suppressed wages. So it was a big lie, like you said, in order to maximize profits, and it was, just intellectually bankrupt. So, and we're walking right down the same path of this H-1B, saying that we don't have the workers yet, and somehow our people are not smart enough. Well, we need, in order for the future to be great, we need to bring new blood. The lifeblood of our country is dependent on bringing in people from around the world, right? And that's a lie. Why? We have people. We have agency. We have intelligence. We built our country with our citizens here for the last 100 years. We should be investing in our own people and not trying to bring and rely on the rest of the world to supply the
Paul,
lifeblood.
I'm gonna try to ask my panel if they can stick around for a couple more minutes after the top of the hour. But as I've been saying since I've been in the air for 15 years, all evil is traced back to Lower Manhattan and Wall Street and the hedge funders. That's where it all is, baby. And now we're getting it again. Hopefully my panel will be back if they can. Stay with us.